If I had to describe West Ham's transfer window, shambles, lack of planning and reactive, I'd go as far to say that we wasn't even reactive, because we did not react to the situation that we put ourselves in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for more West Ham videos. Now let's talk about Sebastian Haller, because he was the conveyor belt, the start of the cycle for West Ham's dismal transfer window. And I've got no issue with Sebastian Haller. I've got no issue with selling Sebastian Haller to Ajax, but it's the way we deal with it and dealt with it. West Ham, we know that David Moyes does not like Sebastian Haller. Sebastian Haller did not suit David Moyes' system. David Moyes has already said publicly he wanted a striker like Antonio. He wanted someone similar to Antonio who could run the channels, who can hold up the ball, who's got a bit of pace about him. And Sebastian Haller just wasn't that guy. But the way we dealt with that transfer was reactive instead of proactive. We've seen that with Red Bull Leipzig. They've already come out and told West Ham that they weren't going to sell Hwang Hee-chan to West Ham because they didn't have a replacement. And this is what we should have done to Ajax. Ajax come in with a bid with £20 million. I've got no issue with that. I'm happy with 25 million, because if he was going to sit on the bench for the rest of the season, his value probably would have dropped even further. But it was the way West Ham dealt with it. Why didn't we just say to Ajax, you know what, we're going to accept your offer, but just give us a week or so to go and try and identify a target that we can bring in instead of selling him and then trying to buy a player after, which was being the reactive part. Because all that did, you know, was sort of let teams know that we needed a striker. We needed a striker, and then obviously potentially selling clubs would notice, well, West Ham have just sold Sebastian Haller for 20 million. Let's add 10, 20, 30% onto the price. And this is where West Ham come into a situation where we tend to overpay for players. And I had no issue with selling Sebastian Haller. It was just the way we done it. That offer from Ajax probably would have been on the table 10, 12 or so days later. We sold him on the 8th of January. Was that offer probably going to be still on the table come the 18th of January? I'm probably going to say yes. I do understand that West Ham probably felt that this opportunity was far too good to turn down. They probably wouldn't have got that summer money had we kept him until the summer. But if West Ham had no intention of replacing him, then we should have kept him. Now let's go on to Josh King, because once we sold Sebastian Haller, I felt like Josh King was the guy that was going to probably replace Sebastian Haller and fill that void, because it was publicly well known again in the summer that we wanted Josh King. He was on his last year of his contract at Bournemouth. They wanted £13 million. West Ham didn't want to pay £13 million. We opted to go with Said Benrahma instead. Now, I'm not sure where that transfer went wrong. Maybe it was because of his attitude. Maybe he didn't play many games for Bournemouth in between the time we was linked and wanted him in the summer, between the transfer window. He was cup tied, so maybe that was an option. But we did sign Jesse Lingard, who was also cup tied. Maybe the attitude in between those two sort of phases, you know, sort of underlined the reason why we did not sign Josh King. But he sort of optimised everything that David Moyes wanted in a striker. Yes, he split the fan base. You know, there was a lot of fans who probably felt that Josh King wasn't prolific enough to be West Ham striker, or to be a striker competing with Antonio. But what he brought was pace. He brought a similar style of play to Antonio, running the channels. He was versatile. We've seen it with David Moyes' strikers or potential midfielders or whoever it was in his squad. He wants versatility. Can you do one job? Can you do another to fill a void if there was a suspension or an injury? And, you know, Josh King would have done that. He would have offered us option up front. He would have offered us another option on either wing. And with someone who scored 48 goals across 5 seasons, playing in a 2-striker formation with Callum Wilson, wasn't always the penalty taker, but he was the penalty taker for some part of that Bournemouth sort of tenure. But also played a lot of his work on the left wing. He worked hard. He tracked back his fullback. And I just felt that Josh King was the available one. Now, he didn't actually get bought until the last day of the transfer window. Now, you know, there was talk about he wanted 120k a week. We don't know. You know, there was publications saying that wage demand was far from the actual truth, that he actually was willing to take less. Even if it was 70, 80 grand a week, I probably would have taken the gamble. Bournemouth ended up selling him to Everton for 5 or so million. Considering the situation we put ourselves in terms of we didn't have a striker going into the transfer deadline day, we should have taken that option. We should have been the ones that signed Josh King. Now, it does look like he joined Everton for a 6-month contract and then they're going to revisit it. We maybe should have done that, because whilst Josh King, who I believe is not the long-term option, the long-term solution to West Ham's problems in finding a striker who could compete with Antonio, who could maybe take Antonio's place and put Antonio on the bench, he certainly would have done a job in the short term. And that is what we had to deal with. We had to deal with a short-term sort of solution because of the fact that the prestigious position that we put ourselves in. We had to find a short-term solution in case Antonio gets injured. Now we have to rely on Yarmolenko and we have to rely on Odubeku. And that is a situation we put ourselves in. Now that goes on to transfer planning and the lack of transfer planning, because obviously we would have felt, you know, it looks like David Moyes' number one target was this Yusuf and Nezre. Now, there was, again, publications saying that Nezre wasn't actually convinced by the opportunity to join West Ham, but there was also conflicting articles saying he was willing to join West Ham. Seville wanted 50 million or 45 million euros. West Ham went up to 25, 30 million euros. And this is where I feel like West Ham waste a lot of time. We waste a lot of time in trying to pursue players that potentially may not want to join West Ham, where we could maybe sort of focus in on other potential transfer targets instead of worrying about trying to convince a good player to join West Ham, but the only reason why he wants to join West Ham is maybe for the money. And once that monetary value goes, almost, I refer to it as buying a new car. Once you've bought a new car, you're buzzing for the first couple of weeks, but when that sort of value goes away, it's just driving a car again. And that's what it would be like for some players. Once they're earning 120, 130, 150k a week, double, triple the amount of wages that they were on their previous club, where is the extra motivation to push on and to do well? Now, there was also, you know, late last night, approaching the end of the transfer window, that David Sullivan apparently told David Moyes that he had 20 to 30 million pounds to spend on the last day, and pretty much saying that, you know, you've got this amount of money, go and spend it. Now, do I believe that, you know, do I believe this? I believe it in a sense that David Moyes had the money because we had the Haller money. That's where I feel like he had the money. However, I don't think he was told yesterday. I think David Moyes knew he had the money 2 weeks ago. He had the Haller 2 weeks ago. And this is where I feel like we have to sort of come to terms with sort of a transition shift in terms of our scout. And we have been so used to the scattergun approach in terms of, and we still are. We were linked to 20 odd players this January transfer. But, you know, last summer, it seemed like we bid for about 10 centre-backs. We were bidding for strikers. We were bidding for centre midfielders. And we've sort of been used to that in the past couple of tenures, where we just sort of scattergun our approach and we just sort of sign whoever and whenever. And David Moyes has come into the club and he wants to change the whole mood. He wants to change the way we play, the work ethic. He wants to change the scouting procedure. And this is where we have to be a little bit patient. And I'm not going to put all the blame on GSB. Whilst I am, you know, an advocate of getting those toxic people out of our football club, I do think there's a part to blame for David Moyes. It's not a bad thing the way David Moyes wants to approach transfers. He wants to do extensive research. He wants not just a player who's good enough to play for West Ham, who's going to give us the option, you know, of, you know, as a potential striker running the channels, but he wants a good person. Are you willing to work for the team? Are you willing to put in the hard miles? Are you willing to get fitter? You know, are you going to sacrifice maybe some of your personal ability in terms of the greater good for the team? And this comes through, you know, extensive research, looking at players on YouTube, you know, trying to find out, you know, in depth in terms of maybe getting into their agents' ears. What is he like as a person off the field as well as on it? And that is why we are doing so well, because we've got, I feel like at the moment, we've got a lot of good players at this football club who are not just good players in the sense of individual ability, but they're good people. They're going to work hard for each and every single one of their teammates on that pitch. They're going to leave, you know, blood, sweat and tears on the pitch. We might not win every game, but we can see, you know, throughout, whilst there has been small blips in sort of our season in terms of performances, but we have done it fantastically well. But I put that down to the team spirit, the team ethic. And David Moyes wants to bring in the right person just to sort of complement the group. And with a striker, whilst David Moyes, probably his long-term target is in Nezre. Maybe he couldn't get him till the summer. And I am more than happy to sort of wait for David Moyes' number one target till the summer. And I always allude it to Liverpool. Klopp could have signed his third or fourth backup centre-back, but he wanted Van Dijk. He waited until January. He signed him on the couple of days before the January transfer window. And look how well that's turned out. He wanted the right person as well as the right centre-back. But we've got to make sure we get our number one target in the summer. That's what we've got to do. But in the meantime, we needed to sign someone, whether it was a short-term option for Antonio, whether it was Josh King, as I said, £5 million, he wasn't the long-term solution. David Moyes has obviously got someone in the long term, whether that's Hoslek, whether that's Simmer, whoever it is, whether it's Yusuf and Nesri. We needed someone, whether it was Josh King. Now, the options we do have, okay, because whilst the transfer window is shut, there are still options for West Ham to go and improve this situation or try and rectify this situation as much as possible. We have Diego Costa. We have been linked with Diego Costa. Now, where do I sit on this? He's 32 years of age. If he can bring 50% of what he had at Chelsea, he would be a good signing. Now, if we can offer him 6-month contract, if we have to pay 100 grand a week or 90 grand a week, then we have to do it. We need someone in. Now, the other option we have is Daniel Sturridge. Yes, I understand Daniel Sturridge is injury prone. You know, it's sort of bringing in an older version of Antonio. He is someone that's had hamstring issues, calf issues, hip issues. This is someone that throughout his career has sort of probably stopped him from doing much more than he actually has. But he's a well-known, proven Premier League goal scorer. He would bring pace. He would bring, you know, work ethic. He would bring sort of what David Moyes looks for in a striker. Now, in terms of being a free agent, he'll probably want 100 grand a week. But there certainly are still options for West Ham to sort of rectify the situation we are in, because where they're free agents, we can sign them after the transfer window has closed, which obviously it has now closed because I'm recording this the morning after. So there are certainly options for West Ham. We have to go and bring in Costa now, or even a Daniel Sturridge. And guys, there are only short-term solutions, okay? I'm not saying give them 2 or 3 years. Give them a 6-month contract. Okay, give him a 6-month contract. If it means paying 90, 100 grand a week, we need cover for Antonio. Because if Antonio's not competing well, and he mentioned in his Sky Sports interview, he wants a striker that's going to be right up his arse, pushing him till the very end, trying to motivate him. And this is where I believe players can possibly become complacent. This is where I believe, you know, Jarrod Bowen needs a bit of, you know, whilst he's fantastic for West Ham, what he's done in terms of his work rate, the goals and assists, you know, players do need competition to keep them competitive, to keep them driving forward, to keep them moving forward in terms of personal development, in terms of just trying to get this West Ham momentum continue moving forward. So I firmly do believe that we need to bring someone in just so that Antonio knows, well, if he's going for a bad patch, we can bring someone in, you know, who can complement the team, who could maybe bring something to the team that maybe Antonio doesn't. But guys, hit the subscribe button for more West Ham videos. Check out my other West Ham content on the channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.